They laughed at our democratic weakness, seated atop their panzer tanks with the arrogance of men who believed the world already belonged to them. I vividly remember how the soldiers of the Afrika Korps, under Rommel's command, looked at us with contempt through the shimmering heat of Tunisia in May 1943. To them, we were nothing more than spoiled American boys, fed by a nation of shopkeepers and toy manufacturers, incapable of enduring the iron discipline of the Reich. They mocked our lack of noble sacrifice. When surrender finally came on African soil, and 250,000 of them became our prisoners, the expression on their faces was still one of defiant superiority, as if that setback were merely a statistical error, soon to be corrected by German willpower. But the tension of that moment was not in the weapons we confiscated, but in what we began to offer them. The first crack in that armor of Nazi pride did not come from a cannon, but from a cardboard box. We handed them our K rations. I watched desert-hardened veterans, men who had pushed the British back toward Egypt, open those packages with hands trembling from hunger. They expected brutality and deprivation, because that was what their propaganda promised Americans would deliver. Instead, they found crackers, processed cheese, fruit bars, instant coffee, and cigarettes. Those emergency meals we always complained about were, to them, an unimaginable feast. The silence that followed as they ate was not peace, but profound confusion. One German officer, brushing cracker crumbs from his uniform, looked at one of our sergeants and, through a translator, admitted that he had expected to be left to starve, but that we were feeding them better than their own army had for years. The sovereignty of our land did not need to be shouted. It was written in logistics. In the processing camps of North Africa, we served pancakes with syrup, fresh eggs, and milk. Foods that had disappeared from German military rations years earlier. I watched their expressions shift from mockery to quiet tension. They began to calculate mentally. If an army from across the ocean could afford to give pancakes to its enemies in the middle of a war zone, what in the hell was happening in the factories of Detroit and the farms of Iowa? That education about American resources was only beginning. Patriotism, for us, was not a speech in a town square, but the confidence that if we needed a spare part, or a gallon of milk, there would be a ship headed our way, loaded to the beams. That certainty bound us together in a way fear of the whip never could for their men. They had ideology. We had an assembly line that never slept. The Atlantic crossing aboard Liberty ships in the summer of 1943 was the moment reality crushed their fantasies. They boarded those steel giants, many of which were completed every 42 hours in our shipyards, a production tempo that defied any logic they brought with them from Europe. As we transported 30,000 prisoners a month to the United States, they watched the machinery of our nation operate with chilling precision. Aboard those ships, prisoner rations not only matched, but often exceeded those of the crew itself. 3,500 calories a day of fresh meat, bread, and coffee with sugar and milk. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared them for what happened on July 4th, 1943, aboard the USS General M.B. Stewart. The ship's refrigeration system, standard equipment for us, was alien technology to them. In the middle of the ocean, under the July heat, we served ice cream to the prisoners. I remember a German soldier holding his metal bowl as if it were a religious relic. The ship's log recorded the production of 10 gallons of ice cream per batch from that machine. For men who had not seen a frozen dessert since before the war, that gesture was a declaration of war more powerful than a bombing raid. They realized that the nation they called weak was so wealthy it could afford to manufacture frozen desserts for its captives in the middle of a submarine war zone. When we docked in Norfolk and Newport News, they saw ports that moved more cargo in a single day than Germany's largest ports handled in a week. The train journey into the American interior was the final blow to their perceptions. Instead of the cattle cars used for military transport in Europe, they traveled in passenger coaches and ate in dining cars. Fried chicken, pies, fresh vegetables. They looked out the windows and saw an America Nazi propaganda said was impossible. Shelves full of Hershey's, Mars, and Nestle bars for just 5 cents. They saw American children buying the same Coca-Colas that they themselves could now purchase in camp canteens with the wages from their labor. The mathematics of abundance was being written in sugar and carbonation. Coca-Cola became, for them, the symbol of our industrial democracy. A product that tasted the same in Texas or Maine, produced in billions of bottles, accessible to anyone regardless of class. The pride we felt was not in conquest, but in belonging to a system where abundance was the norm, not the privilege. Life in the camps, such as Crossville, Tennessee, became a daily lesson in ideological humiliation through generosity. While Germany rationed every gram of sugar, allowing civilians only 280 grams per month, in our camps, sugar sat in open bowls on mess hall tables, available without limit. I saw German prisoners nearly weep at Camp Aliceville when they watched 100-kilogram sacks of sugar being discarded simply because moisture had hardened them. To them, that waste was a crime, but to us, it was merely routine resupply. They saw they could purchase 16 luxury items, chocolates and soft drinks, with just a single day's wages from camp labor. By 1944, the transformation was complete. Prisoners were sending food packages, chocolate, instant coffee, canned goods, back to their starving families in Germany. American sovereignty was not just about winning battles. It was about proving that our way of life was superior because it could create, not merely destroy. But as the narrator of this memory, I carry the weight of what that abundance cost. I watched their looks of astonishment turn into melancholic acceptance, but I also saw the names of our boys who never came home to taste that ice cream or drink that Coca-Cola again. Victory existed, and it was sweet like the Hershey chocolate our GIs handed out to German children during the final advance. Yet the price was paid in blood and youth, turning us into men who, even surrounded by plenty, could never again look at waste without a tightening in the chest. In the end, an Africa Corps officer summed it up. They knew they had lost the war, not when the bombs fell, but when they saw that we could give ice cream to our enemies. That shattered their worldview forever. I survived, and today, when I see a soda or a piece of candy, I see more than sugar. I see the strength of a nation that united to produce the impossible. But make no mistake, freedom is not sustained by ice cream machines, but by the sacrifice of those who ensure those machines can operate in peace. We gave them a taste of our future, so they would understand the error of their past. And I ask you, who live in this era of abundance we built with sweat and steel? Do you truly value the cost of every small freedom you enjoy today? Or will you need to see the world in flames to understand that abundance is the most fragile fruit of peace? Honor what was paid. Never forget that our greatest weapon was always our ability to be generous, even when the world expected us to be cruel.